2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's showtime.
Hail to thee, Phoenix fire, rise, oh rise, ignite the fire! Rise, Phoenix, rise, rise, Phoenix, rise, rise, Phoenix, rise. Watch the waters rise, all hell will come in tide, twitch like a sacrifice, let's hope they don't play nice. They're no less than round, there's still difference found. Descend to the soul within change and grow. This is how we black eternity. Spreaders, fiery wings ignite all things. Rise, Phoenix, rise. Rise, Phoenix, rise. Rise, Phoenix,
What's up? Good morning, everybody. I am last minuting this Doom show for the Whizbanger Show, the Doom episode for the Whizbanger Show. I'm on my second cup of coffee. It's Friday morning here in the mountains of New Mexico. It's my last Friday here in New Mexico. We've been here for 9 weeks with these two old dogs. They're super sweet, currently sniffing each other's balls. So that's a thing. They're very old and have required a lot of attention, so we haven't really been able to do all too much, but we are. The story now is that we're relocating to New Mexico, so we'll see what happens. We just kind of roll with the punches these days. There you go. Anyway, I hope you're all doing happy, wonderful feeling a little bit free in these times of chaos and leaning into your community, of which I am a part. And I appreciate all of you here, because playing all this music, listening to all this music, making connections with all of you gorgeous, wonderful people is what I live for. I am so excited to bring this episode to you today. Thank you to everyone who voted on the poll about which shows to do. I think I had Dirty Rock and Roll, Doom, I got punk rock, and the post show. And nobody voted for the post show, and people are probably like, what? So all these bands are post, so there's all this genre of post something, post punk, post doom, post black, all these things. And I thought, I've got so many bands with the word post in it, and I really want to dig into it and understand it as a genre, because I don't know that I get it. I'm not sure that I get it. I kind of like, I know what it, oh, and there goes my phone. I know what it feels like, but I don't know if I could define it. So I really want to explore that myself. And so I thought, well, let's do a post show. And that's what that was about. But literally nobody voted for it in the poll. So probably people were just confused, and that's fine. That's why I want to do the show on post bands, because I'm confused as well. Well, I'm Sarah Whizbanger, your host for the most. It is Friday, and I am recording the show on a Friday. Usually I get it done early in the week, so it rolls out on time, but it's just been a long week. I got a lot of work, which is good, because work is money, but it's put a lot of other things on the back burner. And of course, we're moving out of here to next week on Wednesday, and we head to Taos for 3 days. Then we go to Denver, and then we're back in the Bay Area. All this stuff that you probably don't need to know, but suffice it to say, I'm fucking busy. All right. But we're going all over the world today. We're going to Indonesia, Finland, Poland, Scotland, the U.S., of course. So lots of Europe, one Asia. And are we going to Russia today? I can't remember if we're going to Russia today. Russia is the continent that toggles between Europe and Asia based on political mood. So there you go. All right. We kicked it off with a goth doom. Post. This band has posted it. Goth doom post punk. They're called Thing, and it's THNG. They're from North Carolina. Oh, I think I have another. I think my banger of the week is from North Carolina too, if I'm not mistaken. The track we opened up the show with is called Phoenix, and that's Phoenix with an F. They're an independent band, and their album Resurrection dropped in March. You can pick it up on Bandcamp, THNG Bandcamp, Thing Band on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Super awesome. I really like this band. I was very happy to get that in my happy little lap for the Doom edition of the Whizbanger Show. And next up, we're going to Los Angeles, California, to hear a band called High Priestess. Sadly split up. I don't know why. I'm going to play the track for you, The Hourglass. And this goes out to Jessie May, because she gave it to me. You can support the Whizbanger Show by going to my Bandcamp wish list and purchasing something off the wish list for me. And that's what Jessie did, because she's awesome. I love you, girl. We need to do another show. She's just rocking and rolling all over the place, that woman. She's awesome. If you don't know about Jessie May, she is the one half of the awesome band Turkey Vulture out of Connecticut. She's a writer. She provides really good advice, financial advice to metalheads and millennials, old millennials and metalheads. She's got a book out, and she's got an interview coming up soon. So just look her up on Instagram, Jessie May on the web. Find out more about her. Follow her newsletter on Substack, and I think it's just Jessie May Metalhead Money. And look for that on Substack. Sign up for it and get really great, super useful, very tight, short, to the point, concise, useful. Did I say useful already? Financial advice. Well, I've been sitting here talking to you for 5 minutes. Let's listen to some High Priestess with The Hourglass. Thank you so much for tuning into the Doom episode of the Whizbanger Show. I'm going to continue easing you on into your weekend, and I sure am glad you have allowed me to do that. Thank you so much, and away we go. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm Sarah Whizbanger, your host of the most, easing you on to into your spring weekend. I don't know where y'all are, but the weather is gorgeous and I'm sneezing a lot. So, doubling up on, I don't think you can double up on allergy meds. I think it's just, you take 2 and you pee it out. Like so much vitamin C. Why do I tell you these things? I don't know. That was Year of the Cobra. They are from Seattle, Washington. They're a duo, a psychedelic doom metal rock duo, and they're effing awesome. I'm trying not to cuss so much. Does it matter? I don't know if it matters. It's my show. Nobody's monitoring me. As far as I know, they're on the Prophecy Productions label, and I got this from Austin at Secret Service PR. Year of the Cobra can be found on Bandcamp, Deezer, Facebook, Linktree, and Instagram, and they've got some shows coming up. And I am also broadcasting on Deezer, so that's a good thing. Yay! One more space for the Whizbanger Show to live on. So right now, SoundCloud and Deezer slowly taking over other avenues. I want to get my podcast on Apple Music, but I'm confused by it. I'm trying. I'm not like writing it off, right? I'm not like, well, I can't do it. So no, I just. It's hard and I don't have the bandwidth to learn a whole lot right now. So easy things are easy and hard things take time. So there you go. They've got some shows coming up on the 25th of this month. They're playing in Warsaw at Oxy, and they're also playing in the Czech Republic at the Polak Acropolis. And then they're back in Nashville, North Carolina in July at the Sly Grog Lounge. So check out Year of the Cobra. If you don't know them, if they're not on your radar, you're welcome. If they are, you're welcome. But check them out. They're a fabulous band and they're super fun live. I saw them many, many years ago at the Oakland Metro in the old spot. So I played the track for you, Sleep, and that's Year of the Cobra out of Seattle, Washington. And that was off their self-titled album released in February of this year on Prophecy Productions. Before that, thank you, Jessie May, for the gift. She bought this off my wish list. High Priestess with the Hourglass was what kicked off that set. They're a psychedelic doom metal rock band out of Los Angeles, and unfortunately, they are no longer together. The album Casting the Circle was released in 2020 on Ripple Music and can be found on their Bandcamp page, High Priestess Music, and look for them and follow them, and maybe some news will come up. Maybe they'll get back together. Maybe they'll give you information about where they're going next. Facebook and Instagram, High Priestess Music. Next up, we are heading to Canada to play a song from a band called Acid Moth, and this is a band that I played on my, I think it was February Subterranean Soundwaves edition, and the sound was just crap. I don't know what happened. I tried to fix it. I tried to figure out. I couldn't fix it because I couldn't figure out what the problem was. That's part of the challenge. It's like, how do you fix something and you don't know where the break is? So I have vowed to replay all of those bands at some point over the course of this year, the next few months, as we progress in 2025. It's a muddy year. 2024 happened. I know it happened because I was there. But I keep having these time gaps where I'm like, what happened? I don't remember. 2024 just sort of was a weird blur. Was that like that for anybody else? I know a couple of you a couple of friends of mine have talked about this. Like 2024 was just weird. 2025 is a shit show. So there you go. Anyway, so this was in the February Subterranean Soundwaves edition, which got just trashed. It is up on the SoundCloud. I didn't delete it because people were listening to it, but I want to apologize to all the bands. And by way of apology, I am replaying all of your tracks. So we are going to listen to Acid Moth. They're from Quebec, Canada, and this is a single that came out in March of last year called Tale of Madness. Acid Moth 1, and that's the number 1, on Bandcamp, and Acid Moth Band on Facebook and Instagram. And away we go. Here is Acid Moth with Tale of Madness on the Doom edition of the Whizbanger Show. Show number 257. Thank you so much for tuning in, hanging out with me, supporting the show, and doing all the wonderful things you do to support independent music and independent music. The independent DJs playing independent music. More coffee, please. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with me today.
Dying and dying, you get cursed in
we're back. I don't know if you can hear the dogs in the background, like licking and chewing and heavy breathing. It's a little distracting, but they're so cute. They're so old. One of them is 14, and he's got some issues with his legs. He has a hard time getting up. He's like this big black dog. He looks like a Newfoundland. His name is Toby, and I've posted some pictures of these guys on my socials. Toby and Dodger. Toby is 14. He's a big black dog. Looks like a sort of almost like mid-sized Newfoundland. He's just absolutely gorgeous. His nickname is Bear. He's got this little floppy ear and his face to die for. They're the sweetest, cutest dogs. Oh my goodness. But he's really old and he has a hard time walking. I can't walk them very far. Yeah, he's taken a couple of falls. It's just sad. But they're very sweet. Oh my goodness. I'm kind of spoiling them a little bit. I hope their mommy and daddy aren't mad when they come home. I can't help it. You know, the dogs, they look at you and they get that look in their eye and you're like, okay, what do you want? Anything? Yes. Sure. Have the rest of my lunch. Who needs it? You're cute. And the other one is like a pit mix, Dodger. He's 12. He's got a little bit more spunk than Toby, but anyway, they're making a lot of mouth noises and I don't know if it's coming through on the show. I hope not, because it's distracting me. But God, they're cute. Anyway, all right. Gentle Beast was who you heard. Gentle Beast is from Switzerland, Basel, Switzerland to be exact. And their album, Vampire Witch Reptilian Super Soldier from Outer Space, to be specific, was released on the label 16Times Music in March of this year. I played the track for you, Endless, and 16 Times can be found on Bandcamp. That's the label. And so you can check out the other bands in their roster. They're awesome. GentleBeastBand.com. Then they have a link tree, a Facebook, and an Instagram. And I think you have to get the album on the 16 Times Bandcamp page. The track you heard from this Stoner Doom outfit out of Basel, Switzerland was called Endless. They've got some shows coming up. Let's see, at the end of this month, they're playing... I can't read it. It's so small. They're playing in Basel with Confusion Master and Mild Crush. And then on the 1st of May, they are playing in Olton. And then I can't read it. It's like a really small kind of faded yellow print on orange background. They've got some shows coming. Go to their Facebook page if you're in Switzerland and check out these bands because they're playing with some really cool bands. Confusion Master is awesome. A band called The Black Salt, who I don't know, and Simisapiens, who I have heard, and they're awesome. So they've got some wonderful spring shows coming up. It's on their Facebook page. Go check them out. Gentle Beast out of Basel, Switzerland. Stoner Doom Madness coming straight to you. Up here comes Toby with his mouth breathing. Can you hear that? I think he wants attention. Top of the set, Acid Moth from Quebec, Canada, with Tale of Madness, a replay from the Crash and Burn Subterranean Soundwaves edition of the Whizbanger Show back in February. This was a single that came out in March of this year also. Okay, both of those songs came out. Oh no, March of last year. I told you 2024 was a blur. I played Tale of Madness. That was a single that was released in March of 2024. Happy birthday, Tale of Madness. Acid Moth 1, that's a number 1 on Bandcamp. Acid Moth on Facebook and Instagram, Acid Moth Band. Okay, next up we are heading over to Toulouse, France to hear a band called Witchthroat Serpent. This is a band that I played on my France show in May of last year. The French metal edition was show number 218. If you just look up the Whizbanger Show 218, French metal, it'll come up. It is on the SoundCloud, and it was a really fun show. So all bands from France, but at the time I was in France, and so there you go. That's why I did that. I didn't do a New Mexico show, did I? The whole time I was here. Holy shit. I don't know if I have enough bands from New Mexico to justify a show. I think I thought about that and had a conversation with myself. Anyway, this is Witchthroat Serpent from Toulouse, France. This is the track Mountain Temple in Bleakness, and it was released in March of 2023. March, third band in a row from released in March. The album is called Trove of Oddities at the Devil's Driveway, and on the label, Heavy Psych Sounds, and I got this from Claire over at Purple Sage PR. And again, if you want to hear a bunch of really awesome bands from France, if you want to check out the French metal edition of the Whizbanger Show, episode number 218, back in May of 2024. In the meantime, enjoy Witchthroat Serpent, and you can find them and engage with them and follow them and tell them the Whizbanger sent you, Facebook, Bandcamp, and Instagram. And away we go. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Doom edition of the Whizbanger Show. right along here. I'm Sarah Whizbanger, your host with the most. You are tuned into the Whizbanger Show Doom Edition, episode number 257. That was my banger of the week, Crystal Spiders from North Carolina, and they're a stoner doom metal rock band, and I played the track for you, Torch. And this was off their I tried this so many times, I don't know why. I feel like there should be another T in the word. Metanoia, and this is coming out on May 23rd, so this is the only single available now, but you can pre-order it. They're on Ripple Music, and I got this also from Claire over at Purple Sage PR. I played Crystal Spiders on my Slow Southern Sounds edition. That was way back in 2022, episode number 139. It is on SoundCloud. So it was all southern, sludgy, delicious goodness, and it's a fucking awesome show. It's one of my favorite ones. So go and check out the Slow Southern Sounds edition of the Whizbanger Show, available to you to stream for free on SoundCloud and Deezer. Hey, how about that? So you can pick up Metanoia on the Bandcamp page for Crystal Spiders, which is just Crystal Spiders, and they're also on Facebook at Crystal Spiders in My Mind, Instagram, Crystal Spiders, and again on Ripple Music, and you can pre-order the album on their Bandcamp page, and it's killer. Obviously, they're my banger of the week. Witchthroat Serpent from Toulouse, France, top of that set with Mountain Temple in Bleakness. They're a stoner doom stoner doom outfit out of Toulouse, which I think I was in Toulouse when I did the French metal show. They're on Heavy Psych Sounds, and I got this from Claire over at Purple Sage PR, and you can hear the French Metal Edition. It's number 218. Look for it on Deezer and SoundCloud. Witchthroat Serpent on Bandcamp, Instagram, and Facebook. And I played the track for you, Mountain Temple in Bleakness, off their March 2023 album, Trove of Oddities at the Devil's Doorway. Next up, we are hearing from a band from Scotland called Cage the Ox. I just got this the other day. They're an independent band. I want to thank Weedian for this one. Who is Weedian? Who is behind Weedian? I've tried to track those people down and get to know them and say thank you for all the wonderful music and why are there not more women on the Weedian releases? I want to do a Women of Weedian show, and I know that would just take probably be a full-time job for a month, try to go through all of it. That's why I'm trying to find out who these guys are. So if you know who Weedian is, give me a contact, man. Get me in touch with these humans. Cage the Ox is from Inverness, Scotland, and just this single I just dropped. I got it from Weedian. Again, it released in April of 2025. They're an independent band, and the track is called Descender, and I know you'll enjoy it as much as I will. Here we go. Here's Cage the Ox with Descender. I'm Sarah Whizbanger, stuttering through yet another edition of the Whizbanger Show, number 257, the Doom Edition. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. have officially passed the halfway mark. I'm Sarah Whizbanger, your host of the most. You're tuned into episode number 257 of the Whizbanger Show, the Doom edition, requested by you, lovely, gorgeous, beautiful people. And that was a band from Ontario, Canada, called Witchrot. And I played the track for you, Throat Cutter. They are a Doom sludge band, and they slay. They're so good. I love this band. Their album Soul Cellar was released independently in... Oh, wait, it's not out yet. Hold on. Wait. All right, hang on. Let me just make sure. Let me not put my foot in my mouth because that happens a lot. So Witchrot's Soul Cellar releases on the 23rd of May, and you can... Sorry. Sometimes my notes are weird, and you can pre-order it today. I played this with Jessie May as my co-host back in April of 2023. I can't believe it was that long ago. Episode number 223, Jessie May co-host, and I picked this one. I think this was my choice. We usually, when I have the co-hosts on, we split the bands that we choose. So this was my choice. So Soul Cellar releases independently on the 23rd of May, and you can get Throat Cutter. This is available now as a single, and I got this from Claire over at Purple Sage. Witchrot, awesome band out of Ontario, Canada. You can pre-order their album on their Bandcamp page, Witchrot, and then also they have a Facebook and Instagram, and you can follow and interact with them and tell them that Sarah Whizbanger sent you, and I appreciate that when you do. Cage the Ox kicked that short, long set off. It's Doom, so there's, of course, I don't think I have any, there has not been one set with more than two bands. Because that's just how it rolls. Yes, so this was a single that dropped in April of this year independently. Cage the Ox. Descender is the name of the track, and you can order this on their Bandcamp page. They have a Linktree, Facebook, Instagram, and Bandcamp. Cage the Ox. Okay, next up, I don't know what to say about this band. Except for... I know you do, because you're listening to the show, and the only people that listen to the Whizbanger Show are as music obsessed as I am. Like, it rules your life, right? Yes, of course, or you wouldn't be here. I came late to this band, and that is one of my regrets in life. And I know that that's not fair to say, because regret is like, you would have known, and then you made the choice not to do a thing, and then you wish you had. I didn't know about this band, and then they came into my life. And the second I heard that first track, the chosen one, off their 2023 release, Songs of Satan, I was like, where have you been all my life, Dopelord? From Lublin, Poland. I listened, I think I had Songs of Satan on for like I must have listened to it 5 times before I could stop. Just one of those bands. And there are many of them for me, but they were immediately my banger of the week back in 2023. I just got an email from Sebastian Gomez, who sends me the stuff from Season of Mist, and they just got signed to Season of Mist. So congratulations to both Season of Mist and Dopelord. Awesome label, awesome band. Anyway, I don't know what to say about this band other than they stop me in my tracks. And to say that they're one of my favorite bands is kind of an understatement, because they do more for me. And so anyway, I've reached out to Sebastian, and I've asked for an opportunity to interview Dopelord. So I really, really hope I get to. You can follow Dopelord on Bandcamp, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. They're just artists. Their artistry is insane. It's like looking at a Caravaggio painting and just kind of like, I have a comparative. I have a comparative for this. My favorite museum thus far that I've been to is the Prado in Madrid. In the Prado not only are there Hieronymus Bosch pieces, like the Garden of Earthly Delights, like all of that. And that was great. And I really thought that it would knock me sideways, because I've been a Bosch fan since I was a teenager. And then I found out that Los Pinturos Oscuros, the dark paintings by Goya, are all in the Prado. And I walked into that room, and I didn't leave for like a half an hour. It was arresting. I just, it's one of those things when you're somebody that has like a line to art, and it just grabs you and does, it kind of it kind of fucks you up in a way, right? And we all have music and movies and books and art that do that. Those paintings, listening to Dopelord for the first time, seeing those paintings for the first time in person, I would equate those two. It was just absolute bliss and just soul lifting, and a little bit of madness because it was just disturbing as well, and beautiful, and it grabbed me. So all that is to say that I hope that I will be able to be bringing you an interview with Dopelord. They're one of my, I can't, like I said, they're not, I mean, yes, they're one of my favorite bands, but they do something to me, and every single song on every single album. So that day that I heard them for the first time in 2023 or 2022, I think it was, I went and bought everything. Everything. Today, you're going to listen to the title track from their 2021 release, Reality Dagger. That was released on Green Plague Records. See, I already can't talk, so I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen to Dopelord. Now they're on Season of Mist, and please interact with this band, follow them. I'll tell you about the tour that they have coming up that I can't go to, which makes me want to cry. And I'm like, I'll go into debt to go see this band, but no, I'm not stupid. I'm just a fan. So here's Dopelord with Reality Dagger. Reality Dagger. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with me. And I just hope that this band gives you what they give me. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We survived. I came out a little bit changed. Every time I hear Dopelord, I feel like something in me, some little tiny piece of my soul shifts just a little bit. There's like an electric charge. God, I love this band so much. I hope that you do too. I really hope for those of you that just heard Dopelord for the first time, you know what I'm saying? Right? Amazing. Just, they take you somewhere. They take you away. It's, God, I love this band. That was a title track to their 2021 release, Reality Dagger EP. Their latest release, Songs of Satan, was released in 2023. They're now on Season of Mist, and they are working on their 6th album. You can follow Dopelord on YouTube, Bandcamp, Instagram, and Facebook. Just look for Dopelord 666. They are touring the 15th anniversary. I want to, like, I'm a little bit like upset that this band has not been in my life as long as they've been around, but you know, that's life, right? You find what you find when you find it. They've got some shows coming up in Poland. They're kicking off their tour on the 16th at Warsaw. At Club Mechnik with Sanity Control and Head of Cassandra, and they have a whole tour with Sanity Control. Then they're going to play at Desert Fest on the 18th of May in London, and I know a lot of you will be there, so if anyone wants to get me a shirt or something, that would be awesome. Then they are playing a bunch of shows in Poland, and then they are playing with Orange Goblin in Helsinki on November 15th. Gosh, I sure wish I could go to that. Anyway, Dopelord, amazing. I already said so much. There's nothing more I can say about this band. I'm a little envious of anyone who just heard them for the first time, because I just remember what it was like the first time I heard Dopelord. They just took me somewhere. And every time I listen to them, I can't like do anything. I can't work and listen to Dopelord. Anything that requires my brain to like work, which is basically my job. I use my brain, which is why sometimes I stutter when I'm doing the Whizbanger show, because it's like tapped out. I can't work to listening to Dopelord. I just can't. I can listen to all kinds of music in the background. It doesn't distract me. It's fine. Some bands, Val is an example of a band that I like just get super meditative with, and I can write a fucking novel listening to Val. But with Dopelord, I can't. It just takes all of my energy to listen to them. I think that's a good way of saying it. And they were my banger of the week in 2023. That's why they're not this week. So, all right, let's move on, fangirl. We're going to go to Finland and listen to a band called Mancoon with Kick Out the Thrones. And they're a doom sludge metal band, and they're independent, and their album Cryptic Forms dropped in March of this year. Another March release. Spring is in the air. Mancoon Doom on Bandcamp, Facebook, and Instagram. And I wrote Bandcamp twice. Bandcamp. All right. Mancoon Doom. So go and engage with this band. They're an independent band, so give them some love and attention. Tell them that Sarah Whizbanger sent you. And away we go. Here's Mancoon with Kick Out the Thrones. Thanks for tuning in and tolerating me. are winding on down here on the Whizbanger Show. Wow, it's been a great show. It's been a long show, but it's a Doom show. There you go. It's always going to be a little bit long. That was a band from Norway called Shepherd's Crook, and I played the track for you, Predator's Mind. Okay, you guys, my brain is back now after listening to Dopelord. It kind of fucks me up. I can't do anything. It makes me dumb. They are from Trondheim, Norway, and the album Evil Magician was released in 2018. They're awesome. This is another band I heard, and I'm like, I'm buying everything. They're so good. Predator's Mind was a track you heard off Evil Magician. Facebook and Bandcamp and Instagram is where you can follow, engage with Shepherd's Crook and pick up a bunch of their music on their Bandcamp page. And again, Shepherd's Crook from Norway with Predator's Mind, killer band. I feel like this band was my banger of the week once. I can't remember. Top of the set was Mancoon also from Finland. Finland. I had another band from Finland. Dopelord made me stupid. I got nothing left. Kick Out the Thrones was what you heard from Mancoon, and that was off their Cryptic Forms album released independently in March of this year. Mancoon Doom on Instagram, Bandcamp, and Facebook. Next up, we're going to go over to Italy and hear a doom death metal band called Tetramorphe Impure with the track Night Chains, and they are on the album, they are on the label Aesthetic Deaths. Wow. As the dog's drinking water, it's distracting. They're on the label Aesthetic Death. I got this from the PR group Anubi Press. They're awesome. They are on SoundCloud, Instagram, Bandcamp, and Facebook at Tetramorphe Impure, and that's Tetramorphe Impure. Impure. Their album, The Sunset of Being, releases next week on the 18th of April. And you can go pick it up on their Bandcamp page. And here is Night Chains from Tetramorphe Impure. And I'm Sarah Whizbanger, your host for the most. And I sure appreciate y'all hanging out with me today. Thank you so much.
imka et amtak kada, amtak it karnak, rumtak gester, im tohab it karnak. Edam notap ek emka nebukati. Return, O Ka, the double, O Ba, the soul. Pulse strong, O Ab, the heart. Make supple the limbs and strong the sinews. Refill, O my soul, this heart with tenderness, that ye may walk again the land of Kem in all thy strength and beauty, and wear once more the Ureret. Guide this thy servant on his appointed task. Go now, go and destroy those who desecrated the tomb of our princess. Those unbelievers who gazed upon her long dead face. Go and let the spirit of Karnak, our god, go with you.
right, I've got a panting dog at my feet. I don't know if you can hear Toby. He's a little bit loud because he's a little bit old. I'm Sarah Whizbanger, your host for the most, and I'm out of here. Let me tell you who you heard and who you're going to hear as I send you out into the wilderness. That was another band, a redo play from the February Subterranean Soundwaves Crash and Burn edition of the Whizbanger Show. That was Foretold. They are a blackened doom metal band out of Los Angeles, California. And this was a self-titled album that was released last year in October. Foretold 1, the number 1 on Bandcamp. Then they are on Facebook and Instagram. And I played the track for you, Bewitched and Rotting. The whole album is great, but I vowed to play the same song from the same bands. And yeah, anyway. So you could rehear what I meant for you to hear. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Tetramorphe Impure with Night Trains kicked that set off. They're a doom death metal band out of Piedmont, Italy, and their album, The Sunset of Being, releases next week on the 18th of April on the label Aesthetic Death. And I want to thank the good people over at Anubi Press for sending this awesome album to me. Facebook, Bandcamp, Instagram, and SoundCloud is where you can engage with, follow, and listen to Tetramorphe Impure, and you can tell them that Sarah Whizbanger sent you. All right. We are going to end with a band from Yogi. I was going to say Jakarta, but that's not where they're from. They are from Yogyakarta, Indonesia. This is their demo from 2024, independently released. The band is called Jagal, Jagal, and I'm going to play the track for you, Possessed. And that's what I'm sending you out into the world with. Jagal on Bandcamp. So, Jagged Jagal on Bandcamp. J-A-J. So, wow. It's a whole tongue twister going on with this band. Jagadjagal. See what I mean? Jagal from Yogyakarta, Indonesia. They're also of the same tag, Jagged Jagal on Instagram. Jagged Jagal on Bandcamp, Jagged Jagal on Instagram. The band is called Jagal. The song is called Possess. It's off their 2024 demo called 2024, released independently. Maybe this was not the band to end with. I'm Sarah Whizbanger, your host for the most. I think next week we're doing that Dirty Rock and Roll show because that was the order of request. And then after that, I don't know. I will be in Taos and then Denver, but I'm going to continue doing the show. Barring any unforeseen circumstances. I got to go, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with me. Go hug a tree. Be good to yourself so you can be good to others. I love you so much. Peace out, y'all. Later.